within our control, given that there's a lot of things that are out of our control now, which is no different than any other day in life. This is just hyper magnified, right? But we actually are masters of dealing with uncertainty.
Yeah.
Every day that we leave the house, we don't know if we're going to get hit by a bus. We don't know if we're going to get news that literally slaps us across the face about, a loved one getting severely injured or something worse, right? We just don't know what's going to happen from day to day. And yet we force ourselves to get on with life every single day in spite of being uncertain of what's going to happen. And we all know that, right? Because most days are mundane. Most days are like get up, brush teeth, drink water, have breakfast, go out, come home, like pretty basic stuff, right?
Yeah.
But then there's always those days, like a Wednesday morning at 10, where all of a sudden you're just minding your own business and life comes along and slaps you in the face, right? And something happens. And we have to learn how to navigate that stuff and remember that we are masters of uncertainty. And so the way to master this time right now, again, I'm just speaking off of what I'm being guided, because none of us have lived this before. There's no playbook. So for anyone to say this is exactly how you do it is, maybe not so helpful, right? Because none of us know how to deal with this. We've never been in this position before, but
Sure.
We do know that there's some universal principles that guide us. There's the law of manifestation. There's the law of intention. There's the law of cycles. Right now, we're having a lot of endings. We're also having a lot of new beginnings. We're literally right in the middle of the cycle. We're literally right in the middle of the shift change.
What I find extremely fascinating is crossover amongst belief systems. I come from a different spiritual background than you do, but at the same time, as humans, there's so many crossovers, and you've said so many things that resonate with me. I just want to bring it up again, a couple things that you mentioned there a couple minutes ago. Our input, what we're listening to, as you mentioned, the news channels, doesn't matter. I found myself a couple years ago in the last election cycle watching way too much news and listening to way too much news on the car rides home from work, and I was becoming depressed over it. And I caught myself in the middle of that and cut off the news, and instantly my mentality changed as I shut off that negative input into my system. And I've always had a consciousness of what I watch and what I listen to as it relates to TV and music. I grew up loving hard rock and heavy metal, but I realized that a lot of the lyrics and the tones of those songs and the bands just were causing a negative effect on my mentality. Up here in Montana, I listen to a hell of a lot more country now, but when I listen to some of the messaging, it's so positive most of the time, and it's about simpler things in life that I can digest as opposed to the complex negative things that so many of us hear. And it was such a good point for you to bring up what our inputs are and how we're manifesting our time and energies and what that allows us to put out into the world in terms of a positive vibration. It's just amazing how that all comes into play.
Yeah, it's, and I have heard, now I can't say this for sure because I don't specialize in actually measuring frequency, but I do know there's a lot of experts online that you can find that speak to the fact that mainstream music and mainstream TV, from a frequency perspective, measure out at the same frequency of fear. And so we actually do have to be mindful of the music we listen to. It's not even any one particular genre, right? Like Top 40 also has the same thing, and a lot of TV. And it's not even the words that are being said, it's the actual frequency of the music, right? So that's why I like to be really mindful of what I'm letting in. And it doesn't mean that I don't allow that stuff, but I agree with you. When I worked in forensics, all I saw was craziness. 16, 20 hours a day, depending on how long my day was. So you know what? I resonated way more with the news because we will match our frequency. Right now, I'm hearing people watching Tiger King. People are going bananas for Tiger King. And I'm like, why in the world would you want to be listening to something that's equally or like crazy, differently crazy, right? But still a high degree of crazy right now. Why would we be resonating with that stuff right now? Why are people watching Contagion? Why are they watching these things? Because they're trauma bonding.
Yeah.
They're literally calling in the energy to match what they're feeling right now. And like, there is no way I'm ever going to give, my time is way too valuable. I'm so mindful of my time that there's no way I'm ever giving that to Tiger King. That's just me. And I'm not judging anyone for watching it, by the way, because I totally respect that we do need to escape and have, escape from reality at times for whatever reason. That being said, I have a lot of work to do, right? And I have a lot of people relying on me to be the lighthouse. And I need to be the lighthouse for me, right? I deserve that for myself, and my family needs that from me, and my clients need that from me. So I have to be more vigilant than ever, because I'm aware that the density of the energy on the planet right now is so thick with so much worry and despair. I really believe a lot of people, sadly, are going to leave the planet, not even from COVID, but because their fear takes them to a state of anxiety that leads to a state of paranoia, which has them making some decisions about whether it's even worthwhile staying on the planet or not. Yeah. Like, there are a lot of people that actually believe this is the end of the world. And I can already see it. I can already feel it. There's a lot of people that are going to come out of this thriving. Didn't predict that their industry would do as well as it's doing, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people that are showing up and really using this as a catalyst, right? As humans, I think we need, sadly, right? And I'm not saying I wish this would happen. I just know from my own clients who operate in feast or famine until they come to me and I kind of coach them out of those patterns, right? That as a human condition, we tend to wait until our back is up against the wall. When we're in school, we tend to wait until 11 o'clock the night before an exam to start studying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. There's so much,
so true,
so much of that deadline stuff that drives our behavior, but a lot of people are being called now, right? They've had this nudge for a while, or they know they need to get out there more intentionally. And now this is finally just calling them to action in a very different way. So we're going to see a lot of extremes during this. And because of that, we need to make sure that we're not riding that extreme, because it is going to feel like a roller coaster.
Well, I think, gosh, there's been so many parts of wisdom in the last 15 minutes of this show. I'm looking out the window out into the pasture out here, and there's a beautiful big horse and a goat feeding off the same piece of hay, and I'm watching this 1,000-pound plus horse push the hay over towards the goat. And it's a great example of, just in nature alone, the bigger animals helping and loving the smaller animal. And I think as humans, it's a great time to practice that, especially during COVID. And you mentioned, even if we're in a fortunate place and not suffering, that this is a great time to help others. And I just wanted to bring up a couple of the things that you mentioned in terms of things that we should be thinking about right now. And please add to it as we close up. But, being mindful of what we say and how we treat others, knowing that their circumstances could be different than our own, and being respectful of what they might be going through, being mindful of what we're listening to and watching, and maybe taking in a little bit more of a positive type of media, whether that's, as you suggested, some easy music or things that generate more positive energy. But what are a few other things that people could be doing right now as helpful tips as we're going through COVID and as we wrap up the show?
I think in any time in life when we are getting immersed in our own problems, right? Because everyone's going to be faced with something. The one thing of this event is that it's magnifying stuff that it was already present before all of this went down.
Yeah.
So if we had a really wobbly money story before this, it's going to feel really magnified now. If we had a hard time being by ourselves, it's going to be really magnified right now, right? There's all of us, myself included, we're going to have things magnified. And so this is a great time to take a look at that and to maybe read some books that are going to help mitigate that stuff, to immerse ourselves with information that help us transition through that. But also, it's really hard to focus on our own issues when we're helping someone else solve their problems. And so I would also be looking at, who can I help right now? And there's no amount of help that's too big or too small, even if you think, oh, that's just tiny. That's not even going to make a difference, or they're not going to need that. I would say just extend it out there, because the more we do that, the more we're going to get through this together.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Jennifer, I really appreciate your time and energies towards the show and the great wisdom and everything that you've shared with us. And I think regardless of what people's spiritual background and journeys are, you've said a lot of things that help across the board, and I appreciate you sharing that. We can find you at souljourneys.com. Is that your website?
.ca.
Oh, .ca. Okay, I'm sorry. And then you're also on Instagram, I noticed, as well, if you want to give us that handle in case people want to follow you.
I don't know that handle because my team manages that, but I am on Facebook an awful lot. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's super easy to find me on Facebook as well, which I actually do spend time on Facebook. And, at some point I have to delegate all these other things, or I would just be wrapped up in social media all day long.
Yes, you would. So it's Jennifer with 2 N's, Longmore is Instagram, and of course her website, jenniferlongmore.com as well. Really appreciate it as we wrap this up. Thank you. Stay healthy and keep up the great work. Thank you for listening to today's show. It is my pleasure and honor to interview all of the guests that have been on the Answer is Yes podcast. If you have enjoyed the show, please go on iTunes and subscribe, give a rating, or simply tell a friend about the show. We also believe in the message of our guests and the positive influence of their stories. As my own mentor and coach, David Meltzer, has taught me, spend some time every day thinking and writing about the things in your own life that you have more than enough of. You will find out how blessed we really are. Please visit my website, livelifedriven.com, for the latest updates about me and what I'm doing. Plus, I post a monthly blog about the many topics on this show. This podcast can also be found there. As I learned early on in life, what you believe is what you will achieve. Thanks, Mark Victor Hansen, and thank you, and have a great week.